The hermeneutic turn in social science. The hermeneutic turn refers to a significant shift in the social sciences and humanities that emphasizes the role of interpretation in understanding human action, culture, and society. Emerging primarily in the 20th century, the hermeneutic turn moves away from viewing social phenomena purely through an objective or empirical lens, focusing instead on how individuals and societies make meaning through language, symbols, and traditions. This turn towards interpretive understanding is grounded in the philosophical tradition of hermeneutics, which originated with thinkers like Friedrich Schleiermacher, Wilhelm Dilthey, Hans-Georg Gadamer, and Paul Ricoeur. At its core, the hermeneutic turn emphasizes that the social world cannot be understood in the same way as the natural world. Social life is deeply embedded in meanings, norms, and interpretive practices, and the role of the social scientist is to uncover these meanings through interpretation rather than to simply identify causal laws. Hermeneutics stresses that humans are self-interpreting beings, and to understand society, we must grasp the subjective meanings and historical contexts through which individuals and groups make sense of their lives. This video will provide an in-depth exploration of the hermeneutic turn in social science, including key concepts such as the role of interpretation, the hermeneutic circle, historical consciousness, and the fusion of horizons. We will also discuss how hermeneutics has reshaped social science research and its relevance to everyday life by encouraging more nuanced and empathetic approaches to understanding human experience. At the heart of the hermeneutic turn is the idea that understanding human life requires interpretation. Hermeneutics, derived from the Greek word hermeneuein, to interpret, originally referred to the practice of interpreting texts, especially religious or legal texts. However, in the social sciences, hermeneutics has been expanded to encompass the interpretation of social practices, institutions, and cultural symbols. Rather than seeing social life as governed by objective laws, the hermeneutic tradition emphasizes that humans are constantly engaged in interpreting their world and their own actions. One of the key figures in this development is Wilhelm Dilthey, who argued that while the natural sciences seek to explain the world through causal relationships, the human sciences, or Geisteswissenschaften, aim to understand, verstehen, the meaning of human experiences and social phenomena. Dilthey emphasized the importance of grasping the inner experiences and subjective consciousness of individuals in their historical and cultural contexts. Key concept: interpretation as central to social science. The hermeneutic turn asserts that understanding human action requires interpreting the meanings that individuals and groups assign to their actions within specific cultural and historical contexts. We explain nature, but we understand human life. Dilthey, Introduction to the Human Sciences, 1883. This distinction between explanation and understanding reflects the unique interpretive focus of the human sciences. In anthropology, understanding a ritual like a coming-of-age ceremony in a particular society requires more than just describing the external actions. It involves interpreting the symbolic meanings and cultural values that the community associates with the ceremony, as well as how participants understand their roles within the ritual. Relevance for everyday life. The hermeneutic emphasis on interpretation teaches us to approach social interactions and cultural practices with an open mind, recognizing that people's actions are deeply influenced by the meanings they attach to them. Whether it's understanding a different cultural tradition or making sense of someone's personal choices, this approach fosters empathy and nuanced understanding. One of the central ideas in hermeneutic theory is the hermeneutic circle. This concept refers to the process by which understanding is always circular. We can only understand the whole of something, a text, action, or culture, by understanding its parts, and we can only understand the parts in relation to the whole. In other words, interpretation is always an ongoing, iterative process, where our understanding of a phenomenon deepens as we continually move between the parts and the whole. Hans-Georg Gadamer, a key figure in the hermeneutic tradition, emphasized that prejudices, in the sense of prejudgments or prior understandings, play an important role in this process. We never approach something with a blank slate, we always bring preconceptions that shape how we interpret the world. Gadamer argues that true understanding occurs when we allow these preconceptions to be challenged and transformed through the process of engagement and interpretation. Key concept: the hermeneutic circle. Understanding is an iterative process where we move back and forth between the whole and its parts. We refine our understanding by considering how each part contributes to the larger context and how the whole shapes our interpretation of the parts. Understanding is never a subjective relation to a given object, but to the history of its effect. Gadamer, Truth and Method, 1960. This highlights how our interpretation is always influenced by the historical context and by our own prior knowledge. When reading a novel, we interpret individual chapters or scenes in light of our understanding of the overall plot and themes. At the same time, as we progress through the novel, our understanding of the whole is influenced by new insights we gain from each part. This process of moving between the parts and the whole reflects the hermeneutic circle in action. Relevance for everyday life. The concept of the hermeneutic circle can be applied to everyday communication and learning. It reminds us that our understanding of others is always evolving, and that we should be open to revising our interpretations as we gain more context or insight. This approach is particularly valuable in resolving misunderstandings and conflicts, as it encourages ongoing dialogue and reflection. The hermeneutic turn also brings attention to the importance of historical consciousness in understanding human actions and meanings. According to Gadamer, our interpretation of any cultural artifact, social institution, or text is shaped by our own historical horizon, the set of assumptions, values, and experiences that we inherit from our particular historical context. At the same time, the object we are interpreting also comes from its own historical horizon. Gadamer calls the process of true understanding a fusion of horizons, Horizonverschmelzung, where the interpreter's horizon is merged with the horizon of the historical or cultural object. This fusion of horizons is not about erasing the differences between the past and present but about engaging in a dialogue that respects these differences while also seeking common ground. Through this process, we expand our own horizon and gain a deeper, more nuanced understanding of the subject matter. Key concept: fusion of horizons. Interpretation involves merging the historical and cultural horizons of the interpreter with those of the object being interpreted. This process allows us to understand meanings across different time periods and cultural contexts. Understanding is the interplay of the movement of tradition and the movement of the interpreter. Gadamer, Truth and Method, 1960. This emphasizes the dynamic interaction between the past and present in the process of interpretation. When studying a historical event like the French Revolution, we must interpret it both from the perspective of its time, the horizon of the revolutionaries and the context of 18th century France, and from our own contemporary horizon, shaped by modern values and knowledge. By fusing these horizons, we can better understand both the significance of the event for the people who lived through it and its relevance to contemporary debates about democracy, rights, and revolution. Relevance for everyday life. The fusion of horizons teaches us to appreciate the historical and cultural context behind actions, traditions, and beliefs. It encourages us to respect differences while also finding common ground through dialogue. This is particularly important in cross-cultural understanding and historical reflection, where engaging with different perspectives can lead to more informed and empathetic interpretations. A key aspect of the hermeneutic turn is its critique of objectivity in the social sciences. Positivism, which dominated much of social science in the 19th and early 20th centuries, sought to apply the methods of the natural sciences, for example, observation, measurement, and experimentation, to the study of human society. Positivism emphasized that knowledge should be objective, value-free, and based on observable facts. However, hermeneutic thinkers like Paul Ricoeur and Gadamer challenged this notion of objectivity, arguing that the social world is fundamentally different from the natural world. In social science, we are not merely observing external phenomena, we are interpreting human actions, which are shaped by intentions, meanings, and values. Thus, Knowledge in the social sciences is inherently subjective and involves interpretive understanding rather than mere description. Key concept: challenging objectivity. The hermeneutic turn argues that human behavior cannot be understood in purely objective terms. Social science must account for the subjective meanings and interpretations that individuals and societies assign to their actions. What we call interpretation is not the appropriation of an object, but the transformation of our understanding of ourselves in relation to that object. Ricoeur, Interpretation Theory, 1976. This emphasizes the personal, transformative nature of interpretation. In sociology, positivist approaches might seek to quantify social phenomena through surveys or statistical analysis. While such methods can reveal patterns, they often fail to capture the subjective experiences of individuals. A hermeneutic approach, on the other hand, might involve conducting in-depth interviews or ethnographic studies to interpret how individuals make sense of their social environments and how these meanings shape their behavior. Relevance for everyday life. The hermeneutic critique of objectivity encourages us to be more aware of the limitations of purely factual approaches to understanding human behavior. It reminds us that numbers and statistics do not always tell the whole story and that we must also consider the meanings and experiences that shape people's actions. This is important in fields such as education, healthcare, and psychology, where understanding the subjective perspectives of individuals can lead to better outcomes. The hermeneutic turn has had a profound impact on social science research, leading to the development of qualitative research methods that emphasize the importance of meaning, context, and interpretation. Methods such as phenomenology, ethnography, and discourse analysis all draw on hermeneutic principles, focusing on how individuals and groups construct meaning in their everyday lives. For example, phenomenology, as developed by Edmund Husserl and Martin Heidegger, focuses on the lived experiences of individuals and how they interpret their world. Ethnography, commonly used in anthropology and sociology, involves immersive fieldwork to understand how cultural practices and social institutions are embedded in systems of meaning. Discourse analysis, influenced by Foucault, examines how language and communication shape power relations and social identities. Key concept: hermeneutic research methods. Social science research informed by hermeneutics focuses on understanding the subjective meanings individuals and groups assign to their actions, using qualitative methods such as ethnography, phenomenology, and discourse analysis. Interpretation is not a separate activity but integral to the process of understanding the world and our place in it. Gadamer, Truth and Method, 1960. In ethnography, researchers might spend extended periods living within a community to understand how its members make sense of their social world. For example, a researcher studying a religious community might observe its rituals and conduct interviews to interpret the meanings that members attach to their religious practices, gaining insight into how these meanings shape their identities and behaviors. Relevance for everyday life. Hermeneutic methods encourage a deeper, more empathetic engagement with human experience. Whether it's in professional settings like therapy or education, or in everyday interactions, the emphasis on interpretation reminds us to consider context, individual perspectives, and cultural differences when trying to understand others. While the hermeneutic turn has had a transformative impact on the social sciences, it has also faced criticisms. Relativism. Critics argue that the emphasis on subjective interpretation can lead to relativism, where all interpretations are seen as equally valid, making it difficult to establish objective truth or universal norms. Limitations in generalization. Hermeneutic methods, which focus on particular cases and subjective meanings, are often criticized for lacking the ability to generalize findings or produce universal explanations applicable to broader populations. The hermeneutic turn in social science marks a profound shift towards understanding human action, culture, and society through interpretation rather than through purely objective or empirical analysis. By emphasizing concepts like the hermeneutic circle, historical consciousness, and the fusion of horizons, thinkers such as Dilthey, Gadamer, and Ricoeur have transformed how we approach human experience and meaning-making. This approach has had a lasting impact on qualitative research methods and encourages a more empathetic and context-sensitive approach to understanding social life. Despite its challenges, the hermeneutic turn remains a critical framework for exploring the complex, interpretive nature of human existence. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you appreciate the video and keep updated on our upcoming content.